Hi there, and welcome to the Engaged Employee podcast. There is an irrefutable body of evidence which proves that organisations with engaged employees have more engaged customers and as a result gain long-term competitive advantage. The cultural and commercial benefits of organisations taking a holistic view of their employee and customer engagement strategies are proven. For over a decade, we've helped some of the world's biggest brands engage with their workforce through our industry-leading conferences and online digital media. To find out more, visit engageemployee.com. Today, our podcast host and CX industry specialist, Dave Darcy, is joined by Future of Work consultant and keynote speaker, Lena Thompson. Lena has over 15 years of experience in the corporate world of consulting, training and designing systems for global clients. Now she's an award-winning entrepreneur and an international speaker on a mission to bridge the gap between the corporate and spiritual worlds. Lena believes that the real key to success and a fulfilled life is self-knowledge.
Lena, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Great that you could come along and speak with me today. I know that our audience will love what we have to talk about. In short, what I'm seeing from your background is somebody who had an extensive corporate career and is now successfully keynote speaking in all parts of the world, from the USA to Singapore to South Africa. It's fabulous. Can I have your life, please? Perhaps start by, if you want to introduce yourself a little.
Well, where do I start? So in 2004, I came to UK from South Africa. I was in a corporate industry. My background is computer science, and I came here as an IT consultant. I worked with organizations all over the world, and I got eventually to a stage in my life where I just wasn't really getting any fulfillment out of what I was doing. And I knew there was something else, but I didn't know what it was. And I didn't know how to even start making changes, because you know how it is. You have family, you've got responsibilities, you've got bills and all of that. And you're like, well, where do I start? And actually, what am I even meant to do? Because I've started computer science, that was my career, and I was making a lot of money. But slowly I think things started to unravel. I started basically, I would say, connecting to myself, to understand more about myself, what was driving me, what was fulfilling me. And eventually it really led me to me quitting my job and starting something on my own. And even though when I started something on my own, I didn't even know what I was starting. It was literally like following breadcrumbs, that almost like universe was leaving in front of me, and just trusting that one day I get some clarity on what I want to do. And I finally found this clarity, and I love it.
That's fabulous. And Jay, it's becoming quite a trend on these calls, and regular listeners to the podcast will know that we had a recording earlier this week with a chap called Rob Hoskin, who spoke about exactly the same kind of thing, about that discovery as you go through life, and the need for, it's almost ridiculous, isn't it, that we ask children at school, what do you hope to be when you're grown up, and how can we possibly know?
Yeah, look, I know there are some people who have this vision, from when they're little. It's like it's in their bones, I guess, that's what I want to do, but it's a rarity, For many of us, I believe we really need to encourage kids, and even, as much as we can, because I do believe we all have our own unique path to walk in this life, and you can only do so much encouragement, but you've got to create that space for them to explore. What is it that lights them up? What is it that they love doing? And really encourage them to follow these footsteps rather than what will make me money and what everybody else around me is doing.
I think that's so important. I'm not sure who it was that said it, but there's a famous quote that if you do something that you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah, I know that quote. It's not completely true. Maybe eventually.
You've got to work hard to get to the point of being allowed to do something that you love.
And the thing is, what I think, like what I would take away from the quote is like, when you do what you love, it doesn't feel like work. Indeed. You know what I mean? Like you can even work hard, but it's like you're just so like fulfilled, I guess, and satisfied. And the fears can come up, the doubts, the uncertainties, but it's that drive, that purpose, that sense of something that's bigger than you that's going to get you through those times.
That's a really, really great point. And I think the one thing that gets talked about frequently in this very fast moving world that we've now found ourselves in, and the way each individual feels at work is certainly relevant to this, is culture. And I think one of the things, first and foremost, that always strikes me when somebody talks about culture is, well, what is it? What do we mean by culture?
Mm. Sorry, was that a question for me?
Well,
I mean, I think we all have our own interpretation of things, right? If you ask one person what future of work means to them, they will tell you it's AI. For someone else, it will be work from home. Same as I think when it comes to culture. So for me, really, culture means where every individual has an ability to explore themselves rather than, compare themselves to what other people are doing. And when the company actually encourages their employees to really give them time and space to understand who they truly are, rather than doing everything for them. And what I mean by that, through the events that I speak at, and also I went back into corporate for over a year, which was a really great experience. I can see that organizations are really trying to meet their people much more than they were in the past. But as a result, what I believe is happening is like they helping them so much on the external, it's like, well, let us allow you to work from home whenever you want, maybe even working 4 day a week, taking whatever longer vacations and stuff. But they're still not encouraging people to change themselves from the inside. And that's why I believe, for me, the culture really should be not just the outer change, but also inner change within people themselves.
So with all of that remote, the aspect, the fact people are remote or hybrid or whatever terminology we might want to use this week, building a culture and being able to innovate and adapt to the different needs within a business or within an industry, I guess that makes that even more difficult, even before we start looking inside the individual.
Well, I don't think we need to start looking inside any individuals. It's not up to us to look inside anybody else. It's up to the individuals to look up inside themselves. We're not here to tell anybody what to do. We can guide them. We can lead by example. But at the end of the day, believe me, I still know people who work from home, who earn great salaries, but they're still stressed. They still don't really understand what they're doing with their lives. They still see the job as just because it pays the bill. But if you ask them, does this motivate you? Like, what do you love the most about your job? Is that what you want to do with your life? They will look at me, and I've had a few conversations. They'll say, well, that's what I've always done. And as I said, we all have our own choices to make in life. But for me personally, that just now would have worked.
When I was researching for this interview, one of the things that I saw was you referenced spirituality, and is this kind of touching on that area? And is spirituality something that's important within an organisation?
I believe yes, because spirituality to me is a self-awareness, right? If you think about why conflicts happen, why communication gaps happen in organizations, and that can lead to, teams falling apart, to organizations falling apart, to low productivity and engagement, is due to lack of self-awareness. And self-awareness is not just us understanding what our strengths and what our weaknesses are, but also firstly, taking control and radical responsibility for our own actions and behavior, rather than saying, this person did that to me, they treated me that way. It's more like, well, hang on a second. What is it showing it within me? Where am I not treating myself the way I want others to treat me? And really, going and reflecting on that instead of reacting to external circumstances. So for me, also then spirituality is being more open-minded and accepting that just because this person behaves in a way that we don't understand, it doesn't mean they're doing it wrong. It's just, it's their concept of reality, and we all have our own realities that we project. And that projection is based on our beliefs, on our upbringing, on our unconscious thoughts and patterns that we are running. So that's for me what spirituality is.
Okay, and in your profile, you make reference to human design. Does that follow on from the spirituality? Can you explain to us what human design is and how it can be used?
Yes. So I'm sure I think you must have heard of profiling tools like Myers-Briggs. Have you?
Of course.
Disk,
Yeah.
Strength Finder. Yeah. So if you think of human design, it builds on these platforms, but it introduces energetic component to it. And seeing that we are all energy, and I mean, that's not even spirituality, that's science. We are 99.99% energy. Ignoring that key elements, I just think is just really being ignorant, because we are not just unique on a physical, biological, chemical level, but also energetically too. In If you don't work, if you don't live in alignments with that energetic blueprints, no amount of healthy food, positive mindset would really help us to optimize and radiate that energy that we all have within ourselves. So human design, it's like a platform. It's a foundational platform that's consists of quantum physics, genetics, biochemistry, and also ancient sciences like Kabbalah and astrology. So for me, and I mean, I worked with different tools and I mean, different modalities. For me, it's the best tool for self-awareness, because it really helps us understand not who we think we are, but who we truly are, and to get into alignment with that highest potential.
And so, how do we go about understanding our own human design?
So, I mean, there is actually a website called mybodygraph.com where you can open it. It's free to register, and you can just pop in your details, and all it takes is your date, time, and place of birth, like a little bit similar, I guess, to astrology, and generates your human design type. And I mean, that's like very basic info, but it will give you an insight, at least on how you are wired to use your energy. Because, for example, some people, why do we get drained? Firstly, why do we get exhausted? It's not because we work hard, but because we don't really pay attention to things that energize us and drain us. So when you understand your human design type, you will know how to become more productive, how to become more engaged and focused. Because some people, let's say, their energy based flows when they work in short bursts. So it means like they do one task, then it's like almost pausing, re-energizing, and then going doing another task. For some people, they can work consistently, like 9 to 5, even longer, as long as that excitement and passion there, because that excitement and passion, that's what re-energizes them. For some people, the energy flows best when they start things. So they're like the initiators, but not necessarily finish things. So they don't actually have the finishing energy. And that's when communication, the way they're designed energetically and genetically, the wired to communicate, is crucial, because it's through communication they can get the right support so that people can help them to finish what they start. And you know how many people I work with, and they're like, oh my gosh, that's me. I start so many things and I can't finish them. And I'm like, well, maybe you're not even meant to finish them, but you're meant to know about it and to express yourself so that you can get the right support.
Understood. And so you referenced earlier the likes of the psychometric testing, like Myers-Briggs and things like that. And obviously they seek, I mean, it's been many years since I last did one, but they seek a lot of data. They ask lots of questions in the same question in lots of different ways often, and so on, to give them more and more data points. Is human design, does it need that level of input as well?
It doesn't need any of that. And if you think about it, we only use our logic, conscious mind 5% or something like that. Most of the time, we literally operate on a subconscious. So when they ask you all of these questions, you can use your logic, your analytical minds, but maybe a few weeks go by and something happens in your family or with your health. And then they give you the same questions when, let's say, you're depressed or you just had an accident. I bet you some of those answers will be very, very different. And that's why, human design, it shows you without any questions, and it literally describes you to such a deep level where the response I normally get from people is like, how did you know that about me? And it's not even me knowing that about them, but it's them just remembering that. I remember when I first looked at my human design, because not it only helps us to optimize our energy, but also tells us the best way we are wired to make decisions, right? Which is really interesting, because not everyone here is to make spontaneous decisions. Some people need to wait. And also, how do you actually make those decisions? It's, some people literally, they feel it like in the gut. For some people, they've got to find the clarity through the voice. We are so different in the way that we not just use our energy, but communicate, make decisions. But in addition to that, human design also offers us a glimpse into our life purpose, into our, into what is it that drives us? What is it that motivates us? So that looks a little bit more of astrology, I would guess, but even, I guess maybe a bit of astrology there. But when I looked at my human design, when I started doing my chart and I looked at my purpose, and I was like, I've always known that. I've always known that. And of course, through life, through conditioning, through societal pressure, you get so separated from that. And when I saw that, I just remember I was like crying. I was just so happy. I'm like, I wasn't crazy. I knew this was meant for me.
So you touched there a couple of times on when you first discovered your human design. So talk to us a little about how that came about and what influence that's had on your own journey following that.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I quit my job, I bought a franchise, which I still have now. And then I also went into network marketing. And even though I like the products, I like the people, I knew in my bones, this was not my path. There was something bigger, but I didn't know what. But in the meantime, I've spent multiple five figures investing in my coaching, in my mentoring, in marketing, sales, and I couldn't make it work. I felt like I was just like really exerting all my willpower and investing. I wouldn't call it spending so much money, but I wasn't getting financial return. And eventually I had this massive burnout. And I remember I canceled all the calls. And one call I had with this lady, I'm still in touch with her. She asked me, she says, have you checked your human design? I don't feel like you're using your energy correctly. Maybe you are not here to initiate, and rather, there is a different way. And I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, well, just read up on human design. And human design has been around since 1987. So I opened the internet, I started looking at it, and it was like a missing piece of a puzzle for me. I just remember the excitement that built up inside of me. And a week later, I flew to Russia. So I bought some books and I've hired a mentor, because as soon as I get excited, I get a mentor or a coach, because I believe, they speed up my journey. And that was like, it just blew my mind. Everything was just so accurate. But once again, it wasn't even a new information for something I've intuitively knew about myself. It was like extra validation, extra permission to be true to who I am, right? And I can't say like everything in my life changed within a minute. It was like little things, like little compartments in my brain started to open up. And I was like, great, now what do I do with this information? And then I spent almost a year like on a couch, like meditating, listening, journaling, because I didn't know. And then I received this, I would say, message from my higher self, whatever you want to believe, universe, I don't know, whatever you believe, to basically tell me that human design is the bridge to help me bridge spirituality in a corporate world. And I remember I said then, I laughed out loud and I thought, universe, you're crazy. Who's going to care about it? But interestingly enough, doors started opening up, and so many conferences I spoke at, people would come to me. And I remember Copenhagen, it was the biggest HR tech event last year, November. There were thousands of people. And this one woman came to me and she was crying. And she says, can I hug you? And I said, of course you can. Oh, wow. She says, you have no idea how long I've been waiting for human design to be introduced into corporate world. She says, everything in my life has changed since I've learned about my design. And I was like, wow, so my intuition was right.
I think, tell me if I'm wrong, but, and I've got to address this because the audience will question me if I don't, but you've used words like, you've talked about the similarity to astrology. We talked earlier about spirituality, and those types of things. There's always going to be the part of humanity that's skeptical to that. How have you encountered that? And if so, how have you overcome that?
To be honest, I haven't. I mean, I'm sure the people who disagree, who thinks it's, it's not for them. But firstly, it's not my job to convince anyone, right? If people are listening to this and their lives are perfect and they know exactly what they're doing and everything is working out for them, then maybe they don't need this information. But if something isn't working and something they keep on doing over and over, and they're repeating the same patterns and they're still feeling angry and frustrated, but they're still believing, that's universe does not exist, spirituality is bullshit, all of that stuff, then maybe it's just being I'm sorry to say, but narrow-minded. And maybe there's just time to experiment with something different. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I remember I was speaking at a Disrupt HR in Guernsey earlier this year, and then the company invited me back to the office, and we were speaking about human design. And there was a small team. There was like maybe 5 or 6, and I did their profile. And their director, he was open to it, but he was skeptical. And within 5 minutes, he just sat there staring at me and goes, "How'd you do that?" He said, "Everybody should know about this." He says, this is mind-blowing. So, and that's the reaction I get from anyone.
You've actually piqued my interest, because I'm thinking, I wrote notes as you were talking, and one of the things you mentioned was, because you said that to begin with that it takes very little information, but then you talked about charts. Explain to me where the charts come in and how that goes about being built.
Yeah, so as I said, if you open, maybe not now, but after a call, you can go on a website called mybodygraph.com.
Mm-hmm.
And when you register, it's a free registration. It will ask you to put your date, time, and place of birth. And then you click one button and it generates your blueprints. It's difficult really because it's quite a comprehensive human design. It's not something you can kind of explain in a few minutes. But on the right-hand side, you will see, it will tell you your energy type. Now, there are 5 different energy types, and every energy type is designed to stay productive, engaged, focused, different. They all have their own set of skills that they bring to the table, and they work and they operate in a world very different. And depending on the energy type, people you work with, it can create conflict if you don't understand these requirements of another person. Because let's say one of the types is manifester, and manifestors, the people, they move really fast. They thrive on spontaneity. They start many things at once and often don't finish them. That's the one of the example I gave you earlier. Then there is a different type called reflectors who really, they are very slow paced. They really need time to decide. The environment is everything for the energy. If they're in the wrong environment, it can be a deal breaker for them. So if you put those 2 people together, one who needs time and space to reflect, to pause, observe, and another one who's fast, who multitasks, who starts, doesn't finish things. And without that understanding, when we don't understand each other, that's when we start either judging or comparing, right? And that's where a lot of problems happen. So basically when you generate your chart, then you will be able to see what is your energy type and read a bit more. And also read, I believe it will tell you your authority. And authority in human design is how you're actually genetically wired to make decisions that are correct for you.
Fascinating. Looking at your the businesses you're involved in as well, one of the references I saw was future of work. And future of work, I guess understanding your human design is intended to help people then identify the skills they need for the future of work. Or have I misunderstood that?
Yeah, so future work, it's like, me and my friend actually, she was a CEO of a multi-million-dollar company. We actually started a new channel called 9 to 5 Spirituality, which is designed exactly to help people for us really to introduce new concepts into organizations and also to professionals to help them to navigate those daily challenges from a spiritual point of view rather than from the ego point of view. And that's for me what future of work is about. It's just looking at things differently. It's taking different approaches. It's more self-inquiry, more really self-understanding. And obviously human design, I believe, does play a big role in this.
Again, absolutely fascinating. I think that, this is something I had not been aware of prior to our conversation. It's certainly something that has been interesting to hear about. What would your advice be to somebody who wants to know a little bit more about this?
About human design?
Yeah.
Well, as I said, the first step is the website I've shared, mybodygraph.com. Go generate your blueprint, read up on it. There is information on YouTube. If you go human design, there's going to be many videos. If people want to really go deeper into their personal charts, then, they can book readings with me, with someone else, whoever, it doesn't really matter. But I think firstly, generating a blueprint and just reading up on it and see, because I know when I read this information, I was all in. It was like, I need to know more. But as I said, we're all different people. For some, they'll be like, oh, no, it doesn't work for me.
No, that's great. And you're obviously very invested in this. I think that the passion that you use to speak about it is palpable. What would you say is the biggest influence that this has had, biggest change it's made to your life?
So firstly, it stopped me from being busy for the sake of being busy. I was the kind of person who I would just pile up so much into my life and thinking the harder I worked and more sacrifice, the more successful I will become, more I will accomplish. And that changed completely. So I do way less and I actually accomplish so much more, because when you start using your energy correctly, and the way we need to understand this is that we are, as I said, we're all energy, right? We're all connected to this big energetic field, and that field, the universe, however you want to say. And once again, it's science. Even Einstein was talking about it. It talks to us in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. It doesn't speak to us in a human language. So the higher your energy, the higher quality experiences you attract into your life. And let's say you wake up in the morning, you're in a bad mood, you trip over your shoes, you spill a cup of coffee, or you hit every single red light on the way to your office because your energy is low. You wake up another day and you're feeling on top of the world. Maybe you went for a run or whatever it is that you like to do. Every green light, your day goes amazing, because that's all got to do with energy. So the higher your energy, the more opportunities that are aligned with your energy you naturally attract into your life. And that's been my experience. When I stopped pushing, when I stopped initiating, which I don't have the energy to do, and the more really, started pausing, slowing down throughout my day, the more productive, more engaged I became. But not even that, the doors started opening up for me, and opportunities that are actually in alignment with my mission, with my purpose, they started coming to me. And I'm not saying I don't do anything. Of course I do. But instead of taking 10 actions, I would listen to my intuition and I would ask, like, what is the one most exciting, inspiring thing I can do? And I follow that every single time, even though if it feels scary, even though if I have no idea where it's going to lead me, it doesn't matter. I'll always take that action, because I know that this is the right action for me. And when I take that, the next action will be shown. So to give you an example, I own a franchise. I have 2 people working for me. I also speak at events, so I'm always writing new keynotes. And at one stage, I was also a full-time contractor at Morgan Stanley earlier this year. And I still went to the gym at least for an hour every day. I still picked up my kids from school. I had at least 2 hours a day where I meditated or I journaled and I was by myself. And, people would say to me, like, even with one job, we don't allow ourselves to have so much time. How do you manage it? Because I know what aligned, what inspired action is. And it's a very different thing from just taking a busy working day action.
Wow. Wow. I mean, I know that I anticipate masses of feedback when we broadcast this piece. I think it's going to get a lot of interest from people. I'm really looking forward to what they have to say. I think it's been an absolutely fascinating subject. And I'd really like to thank you for spending the time to educate me, and I'm sure many of our audience.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you so much for having me.